Hi BookTube, I'm here today with a haul. So every year, one of my favorite towns holds a massive used book sale, and I'm telling you, it's like a warehouse, and it's really well organized. They have everything divided by genre, and you can just go through and look at what you want. So I've managed to pick up 27 books here, and I spent exactly $50, which I think is amazing, considering that a lot of them are hardcover, or really otherwise expensive books. So instead of babbling on, I'm just going to show you. So this first one is called Tassaract 17, Speculating Canada from Coast to Coast. This is actually an anthology of speculative fiction, which is horror, science fiction, and fantasy. And it's written by authors, and the settings are actually each of the provinces and territories in Canada. So I thought that was really quite fascinating. Then I picked up, I don't know if I'll say this right, Zetuan by Dave Eggers, who's one of my favorite authors. This is actually a true story about a family's experiences between 9/11 and Hurricane Katrina. Then I got We Need New Names by Noviolet Bulawayo. She's a Zimbabwe author. She now lives in the United States, though, and this is actually a story about a girl who migrates from Zimbabwe when she's quite young during some upheaval at the time. Then I got Mr. Norris Changes Trains by Christopher Isherwood. I really like these editions of the Penguin Modern Classics, the kind of old ones. Don't know quite what this is about. I know it takes place, I think, in Germany, just prior to World War II. If you watch Ashley over at Climb the Stacks, she read Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry recently, and really actually I think enjoyed it. And then I found out that it's one of my granddad's favorite novels, so I decided to pick up this really huge, massive book. Then I have The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Gennades. I think this is a well-known book. I don't have to tell you what it's about. Then I got Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. This seems to be about Thomas Cromwell and Henry VIII, kind of around the time of the Reformation in England, continuing my new-found love for historical royal fiction. And I know this is quite popular. It's been made into a mini-series, I think. And I'm in the process of collecting the Griffin and Sabine collection. Now I only buy them used because they are quite pricey, and I managed to find two that I don't already own. If you don't know, Griffin Sabine is the creation of Nick Van Hook, who is not only an author, but he's an artist. And this is a story in letters. It's mostly postcards, but occasionally you get envelopes where you can actually take the letters out and read them. So they're actually very beautiful books and very interesting story. So I got Sabine's Notebook, and this is the last one. It's The Golden Mean. And it's the same. Lots of beautiful interactive features and pretty pictures. The next is Canadian literature, The Cure of Death by Lightning by Gail Anderson Dargatz. I think this is just after World War II it takes place, and it seems to actually deal with a lot of mental health issues. I picked it up because the title just sounded intriguing, and it's Canadian literature, so yeah. Keeping in line with Canadian literature, I picked up King Lear by Paul Quarrington. I picked this up because it was a Canada Read selection in 2008. This is about, actually, a guy who was, you know, a hockey player, and he's quite popular, but now he's in a nursing home. So that really piqued my interest. Then I got this set of Arab folktales. I have a collection that is almost just like this, maybe by the same publishing company, of African folktales, and I love folktales from all over the world, so I decided to pick that up. Like Water for Chocolate, I just put on my list of books to buy, and I found it there in a nice hardcover copy. This story takes place in Mexico, and it's about a chef who can put her emotions into her food, and then the people eating the food experience those emotions. So that sounded quite interesting, and there's actually recipes. So there's quail and rose petal sauce, and then you get the recipe on the back there. So I thought that was really cool. Maybe try cooking some of those recipes. Then I got Villette by Charlotte Bronte. I know I hated Jane Eyre, but I really like Emily Bronte, so I'm wondering if maybe Villette is more along my tastes. I got another historical royal fiction, and I've actually already started reading this. This is Queen Margot, or Marguerite de Valois, by Alexandre Dumas, who is known for The Three Musketeers, and my favorite book, The Count of Monte Cristo. So that's why I just immediately grabbed this and started reading it. And it's also about one of the sisters of Francis, who is currently featured in the show Rain. So I kind of have the pictures of people in my head, so I was like, that's kind of cool to read a book about that time period. Then I got Nobody Knows My Name by James Baldwin. This seems to be non-fiction works by James Baldwin after he comes back from his exile in Europe and heads back to America. And this was actually published while he was still alive in the 1960s. So I really like this old kind of cover. Then I got Brown Girl in the Ring, which is a science fiction story about how all the rich have fled cities, and the inner city has to go back to like farming and bartering. And now this young girl starts realizing that the rich are preying on the people, and it has a lot to do with Caribbean spirituality and myths and all that kind of thing. So I thought that was interesting to see science fiction and kind of like dystopian mixed with mythology. And then this was another book I was really excited to find, The Dog Blood by David Moody. He wrote Hater, which was one of my favorite books from last year. Kind of like an interesting twist on the zombie stories. And this is the sequel. I've already read this, but I read it in ebook form, and I really, really wanted a copy of it, and for $2 I couldn't put it down. This book is The True History of the Kelly Gang by Peter Carey. This was on my TBR. I didn't actually get to it. I didn't have a physical copy of it. I did have the ebook form, but now that I have the physical form, I'll be more likely to read it. This is an Australian story written by Peter Carey about Ned Kelly, who's kind of along the lines of like the Australian, what's his name? Jesse James, kind of thing where he's like a hero slash thief kind of person. Yeah. And then, I'm sure you all know Joseph Boyden from the Orenda. This is 3 Day Road. This was actually on my TBR for May. And I didn't have a physical copy, and when I saw it, I grabbed it. I didn't even look at the price, which was $2, but I was like, I'm just going to grab it anyways. So this is about some Ojibwe Cree fighters during World War I. Then I'm reading a series by Paul Anderson right now, and it's a fantasy series, but he's actually more, well, fantasy historical fiction, but he's actually more well known for science fiction. So I saw these two books that are from the same series, Ensign Flandre and Flandre of Terra. So they're kind of like a science fiction epic story. Along the same lines, I picked up Hyperion by Dan Simmons. I think this was a BookTube read-along at one point, so I thought, why not? I'm always into science fiction classics. This is probably one of my favorite finds. This is the Best American Comics from the Best American series. This is from 2006, and I have others of this series, but not in hardcover. So this has taken different comics from different sources, graphic novels, magazine comics, newspaper comics, web comics, and compiled it into this edition here. Then I picked up a book of poetry by Spike Milligan. He's a comedian, and it's filled with doodles alongside poetry, so I thought that was quite entertaining. Then I picked up a history nonfiction called Canuck Chicks and Maple Leaf Mamas, Women of the Great White North by Anne Douglas, and it's about things that have affected Canadian women, great Canadian women. Yeah, it's Canadian women history, what every Canadian history teacher needs. This next one is another beast, and it'll take me a year to read, and I'll tell you why. This is The Assassin's Cloak, an anthology of the world's greatest diarists, but instead of organizing it by the authors of the diaries, it's organized by day. So here I'll randomly open it up to March here, and on March 1st, in chronological order from, I think that's 1686, sorry, and it goes through to 1963 of different famous people writing about events in their diaries. So I was like, that's really cool, so I'm gonna start reading that, you know, every day, finding out a little bit of this happened on this day in history type of thing. And lastly is this little box set called Story World, put together by John and Caitlin Matthews, and it's kind of prompts inspired by tarot cards. So I'm not going to pull them all out because they won't come. So you got a little booklet here explaining what to do, but there's different cards, and you just kind of grab a handful because some of them have things on them. This is the Charm of Healing, and pick a character, the youngest daughter, and another thing, the fairy. So you take those and you kind of write a story using the inspiration or the different prompts on the back of the cards. So I thought that was a really neat little idea. So that's what I picked up at this huge book sale. I was very happy with what I found. So let me know if you enjoy going to these big, huge fundraising book sales, and if you have any of these books in which you think I should bump up in my list. I'm sorry if I'm not making too much eye contact. I'm filming on my phone, and I'm looking at the screen instead of where I'm supposed to look. So remember to keep on reading.